Okay, so to answer your question about why I use Acme as a programming editor, meaning like in the last video I answered why do I use it to browse source code, but you didn't see, and I didn't say why I use it to program it. And I also just made a video about just some of the basic usage with Acme, basically how buttons and stuff work in Acme. Hopefully that's enough to kind of answer the question about why do I program in Acme. To give you kind of like a conceptual idea behind Acme is, again, Acme is kind of like, it doesn't give you anything, right? There's no big editor or world it provides for the programmer. It's not like Eclipse or Android Studio or Codex, where those IDEs are an entire world unto themselves, right? The compiler and everything is heavily integrated into it. The build system's integrated into it. Acme is the opposite approach. Remember, we can run shell commands. Acme fits into whatever environment you are in. So even if we're on Windows, we can easily run the Microsoft C compiler from within Acme as if it was a shell command. So in here, I can run clang, you know, as if I was on the shell or terminal, whatever. So I'm in the Bookie directory, and you're familiar with my Bookie project. If I run make, right, I can compile it. I have the output from the make file. If I refresh the contents of this directory, we now have a build directory. The objects in here, some binary files. Okay, so let's mess something up in the code so it doesn't compile properly. A common practice that I'll do, by the way, is actually in the directory that I'm working in, I'll type in make clean. So if I just middle click make, right, nothing happens because there's nothing for make to do. But if I select make clean, right, it'll clean the build, and then I can just click make again to. So I kind of just leave this here, like in the terminal, right? What's common is you go in the terminal and you type make clean and make if make clean is successful. It's a common idiom on the terminal. So, but the kind of Acme equivalent, if you want to say, is just to have make clean here, right? And you select the entire string of text and middle click on it to clean it. And then to just build it, I don't have like a separate make command. I just click the word make with the middle click. Okay, now in the basic usage video, I kind of showed a little bit about opening up files. Acme has some more features about understanding text and common idioms with compilers. So if we have an error, I'll go in here and I will break something. I'll comment this out. I'll build it. Okay, so now we have compiler errors. I'm going to do a fresh build. Move this over here, go to the top. Now, here's just some common average compiler output. It tells you the file that has an error, the line number, and I believe the character. If I just right-click this part of the text, it will open up the file and bring me to that line. So as I'm building stuff and debugging stuff, Acme's really convenient. I compile it here, and then when I want to go to where that error is, I just right-click it. So this is flagged as an error because I commented out this header file. This header file defines what global means. If I want to go to a different error, such as this one, brings me there. Oh yeah, by the way, notice the file is already opened, right? So I have this opened, but when I'm going to the compiler output, I'm able to just jump around to different parts of the file. So again, this is a function that's declaration is defined in that header. This is one of the most frequent things I do with Acme when I'm actually developing stuff. Is I'll have compiler output like this. Show you in the basic Acme usage video was the edit command, where you can kind of replace strings with some other string. You know, like if you're an Emacs and you say like replace string and you give it some string and then replace string, and right, so now, yeah, you do that with the end. So if I want to replace bookie.h with foobar.h, I can do something like this. I think. I often forget the exact syntax. Yeah, okay. So it's an easier way to do this. No. Ah, yeah, okay, that did it throughout the whole thing now. Whoops. Let's swap these. Foobar, bookie. So this should not work, right? But now if I select it, okay, I don't think you saw what I just did there. When I selected this body of text, I swap these two pieces of text. So I want to replace bookie.h with foobar.h. I select this whole command and I middle click and it replaces this text. If I want to do if I want to replace foobar.h with bookie.h, but I don't want to select the text, I can put it like a comma in front of the S here. Oh, Jesus. Keep doing that. Okay. So I put a comma in front of the S, and that just tells Acme search throughout the entire window of text to replace each instance of foobar.h with bookie.h. Oop, and we have it. Okay, so there we go. And let's get rid of this. So I will use substitutions like that in Acme. Yeah, I don't really know where to go with this. I mean, the other thing is I don't like using Acme for Python because it's, you know, the default indentation style for Python is spaces and tabs, but Acme does not provide like any kind of indentation support. Actually, that's not true. Okay, let's make a new file here. Just delete this, a new column. There is another command, indent on, which I will sometimes use. So if I start typing some Python code, my indent, right, I'm going to say like print I, right? The indents continue from what you did on the last line. It's a pretty primitive indentation thing. The other thing you can do is type in font, right? And now this switches between mono font and just whatever the hell non-mono font is called. So one of the things I do if I am editing Python code in Acme is I usually switch to mono font and I have the indent on because I gotta type 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And these are now all spaces. Something that is kind of annoying in Acme is you can't use the up and down arrows to move the cursor up and down. It just scrolls throughout the whole window. However, you can say Control A to jump to the beginning of the line and Control E to jump to the end of the line. So if I wanted to, like, sometimes what I'll do is it just does, sometimes it makes sense to use keyboard shortcuts instead of using the mouse to just go up to the end of the last line. So if I'm like here and like my instinct is to push the up arrow to move over to the end of the line, is I'll say something like Control A to jump to the beginning of the line and then just move once to the left with the left arrow to get to this point. Um, so I guess to like finish up this discussion is I don't really want like a lot of bells and whistles, like auto completion stuff from my editors. I find that they get in the way more than they help. And what I do like is this blurred line between the terminal and the editor that Acme provides, where I can run commands. So if I want to know like how many lines of source code is in this directory right now, I can type in this command, which counts the number of lines pointed to the directory that I'm in, just highlight it and middle click, and I have the output that you typically see on the shell, right? So like if I'm in the terminal, I go to the same directory, I can get the same content in the terminal, but I'm not moving back and forth, and often like output that comes from a command I'll end up using in text. So, I mean, this, the most obvious example is the one I showed you before that, like when I have a failure from the build and there's an error message, I can just immediately jump to that section of the code. But